Welcome back. Good afternoon. I'm Mehdi Longosari. It's like my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. She is the technical director in the office of the CTO of Google Cloud. She has actually over 20 years of experience in delivering solutions on IoT, analytics, machine learning. And she has been actually here several times throughout the years. And this time, actually, she's coming here to talk about intelligent Internet of Things, how I get to drive intelligent everywhere. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Bennett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
It's great to be back, and what a great crowd we have here today. So, you know, we live in a connected world, and I think for me to say that to you is quite humorous, actually, because I think we all realize this. But I was at dinner the other night, and the conversation revolved around all of the products people have in their homes, and what's working and what isn't working. And I thought to myself, am I hanging out with a crowd of technologists? And then I looked around and I thought, no, it's becoming mainstream now. A lot of this connected devices in our home. But it's not just in our home, it's in almost every aspect of our lives. So in industries, in governments, even in banking, we're starting to see this idea of the connected world becoming reality. But it's not just about connectivity anymore, it's really about intelligence. And that's what I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about today. You know, IoT has really enabled us to bring new insight and new experiences, connecting people with devices through intelligent applications, being able to drive operational efficiencies, being able to deliver new customer experiences, changing business models in many cases. This is really what IoT is all about. Google has a rich history in smart connected devices. Many of you might be familiar with these. And in developing these smart connected devices at planet scale, we've developed a number of technologies, ranging from connectivity to big data, and now even into machine learning, driving an AI-first approach to technology. So we have a lot of experience in this, and what we've been doing over the last couple of years is delivering that experience to our enterprise customers. Last year, at this event, we actually announced a managed service called Cloud IoT Core, which is really the keystone of our IoT platform. It enables our customers to connect and manage millions of devices across the globe. And there are many companies that are taking advantage of Cloud IoT Core already today. Things like smart parking as part of an initiative around smart cities. We also have people who are revolutionizing the agricultural industry. And we have people in the oil and gas industry who are looking at offshore rigs and how they can make them more operationally efficient. So a number of different industries that we have seen taking advantage of the technology already. I'd like to welcome up to the stage Markus, Rink, who's a VP of Digital Development for one of those customers, E.ON. And I'd like for you to welcome with me Markus. So Markus, can you tell us a little bit, for those who may not be familiar with E.ON, tell us a little bit about E.ON.
E.ON, we're actually one of the biggest European energy solution provider. Our business is serving customers, running grids, running renewables assets. So we serve roughly 22 million customers in Europe. We have 1 million kilometers of grids in operations. And we also manage roughly 7 gigawatt of renewables assets that we operate for energy production in Europe and in the US.
Great. So this is an IoT crowd. Tell us a little bit about how IoT is revolutionizing your business.
We are actually in every home we are actually in every building and in every industry. Because energy, power and gas is essential for every business. So therefore, we're living in a world where efficiency of energy is super important. And that means we need to connect to our customers. We need to steer that. We need to be able to help customers to optimize their consumption. And we need to help them to generate their own energy, being part of a new energy world as we are entering. And we also need to be there to understand how we can drive new developments and innovation in markets. Heating becomes more electric. E-mobility is on the forefront, and that has a huge impact. And if we don't connect to this and have IoT in place for that, we will not be able to compete in the marketplace.
Can you maybe tell us some of the challenges that you've faced as you've been looking into IoT and deploying some of these technologies?
I think the first and foremost is security. For IoT, the most relevant aspect for us was security from the beginning by design. And that is still one of our biggest challenges. How do we get end-to-end security across the whole stack? We operate PV systems. We have heating systems connected, or whole industries. So we don't want people to get hacked and coming back to us and saying, I need to pay Bitcoins because someone just stopped my heating in winter. So this is for the services we provide, it's of utmost importance. I think the second one is being able to retrieve as much as data as we can, because the data and the capabilities of AI will help us to really get more insights into our data, and that helps us also to provide totally new services to end customers. And there's a huge demand for that.
Great. So you have partnered with Google Cloud. Can you tell us a little bit about the choice for Google Cloud and why you chose to partner with us?
Good question. I think the first one, come back to security. So when you look at the overall architecture and also what Google, for example, announced last week in London, security is something that starts from security on silicon, where you cooperate with hardware vendors, also getting super secure hardware devices in place, directly connecting pre-registered to the cloud services. You run an extremely fast cloud backbone. The Google service, especially since you invented Kubernetes, is one of the smartest ways to deploy workloads in an efficient and extremely scalable way. And also looking at Google's AI capabilities, really retrieve new insights out of all that data. That is super smart for us.
Mm-hmm. And tell us maybe a little bit about how you work with Google Cloud and some of the relationships that you have maybe with the engineers.
I think that is that's a standout situation that we have with Google. We are very early involved in the developments of Google. So we receive feedback and have the ability to influence products in alpha and beta stage already. We're able to co-develop functionalities that is very much appreciated by the engineering teams in Google, having real life requirements so that they understand how to shape their products in a way that the technology fits to requirements of large-scale businesses as we are. And it is, there's a lot of involvement that we have on bi-weekly or monthly calls with engineering teams to really understand what's next, how could we leverage that, and how could we create a competitive advantage with the technology that you innovate.
Great. And I know that as companies, we share a common mission around sustainability. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's also important. Is when we took a couple of very broad decisions when we split up our company 2 years ago. Our focus is clearly on sustainable solutions. We believe in an energy market that is decentral and fully carbon neutral. So we're also looking for partners who share that vision. And looking at sustainability approach of Google, you run your data centers already CO2 neutral. This is important for us. Also we want to pick up partners that follow, let's say, that vision.
Mm-hmm. Great. So what's next? What are you excited about? What does the future hold in terms of this use case and the deployment that you have with Google Cloud?
We are in a lot of POC stages with a couple of services. One of the things that is very exciting right now is we're looking for a solution, or building a solution now for connecting our industry partners and our retail customers, means especially B2B customers running commercial buildings. And building energy management is something where we're looking for solutions together with Google from an IoT perspective to develop new optimization, energy efficiency solutions that we can bring to the market. So that is pretty exciting. We already put our visualization and a forecasting tool on Google platform, and now we're taking from there, expanding to IoT now.
Yeah, I think the future is really exciting. So I wanted to thank you for being such a great partner. Right. Thank you for joining me, and please thank Markus.
Bye.
So you've heard from one of our customers, and we have many, and the stories are very similar, which is that IoT is really transforming their business. But what is the future of IoT, and how are we looking at it moving forward? We're thinking very strategically around 4 pillars, and Markus talked about a couple of these, actually. We start with intelligence everywhere. So I mentioned early on that IoT is not just about connecting devices, it's about delivering intelligence and new insight. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what we mean there. We're going to talk a little bit about serverless and why that helps enable the scale from moving from POCs to millions of devices. We're going to talk about security. Markus spent a lot of time talking about how critical this is to his business, and it is critical to us as well. This is always a top priority for us. And we're going to talk about the ecosystem of partners, because IoT is not about islands. It's truly about ecosystems, and we really need to bridge that between hardware, software, ISVs, SIs, the whole ecosystem. Let's start with intelligence everywhere. You know, many of our customers will come to us because we're a leader in machine learning and in much of the research around AI. But the study done by Bain and MIT here demonstrates that AI isn't just a research area. In fact, companies have noted that AI is delivering them competitive advantage. Companies that have initiatives around machine learning, around AI, and around analytics have seen 2 times more data-driven decisions, 5 times faster decisions than the others, and 3 times faster execution. So these are significant numbers, significant value. In fact, 50% of the adopters of machine learning are already able to quantify significant return on investment. So one of the missions that we have at Google is to democratize machine learning. We now realize that it can't be just constrained to the data scientists and to the machine learning experts. So we've spent a lot of time in enabling a community of developers and of business analysts to take advantage of machine learning. We've had our existing Cloud ML APIs, which are pre-trained models from Google's repository of data. And this you can just use through an API, fairly easy to use for a developer. We also announced AutoML, which is the ability for you to take those pre-trained models and train them quite easily on your own industry-specific domain. This is much easier than what you had to do in the past. We also now have announced the beta of BigQuery machine learning. So BigQuery is a large-scale cloud data warehouse. This now enables you, and enables your business analysts, for example, to use SQL to generate machine learning models. So a new paradigm, unleashing the power of machine learning. And then last but not least, we certainly have plenty of capabilities for those machine learning experts that you have that can build your own models using TensorFlow and other tools. We also fundamentally believe that what we've seen with inside of Google is once you unleash the power of machine learning to your development community, you start to find very quickly that you run out of CPU resources. So we have learned that we needed to develop custom hardware that enables you to do machine learning at scale. We've developed these tensor processing units. They do matrix math very, very efficiently, custom ASICs. These are deployed throughout our cloud infrastructure today. They enable 15 to 30 times faster processing for machine learning algorithms. This is like, if you think about Moore's law, it's like 7 years in advance. Quite significant. 180 teraflops is what we're able to do with these TPUs in our cloud. We've also announced the version 3 of this. However, machine learning can't only be in the cloud. Intelligence can't only be in the cloud. And so this year, we've announced Cloud IoT Edge. We're bringing that intelligence to the edge. And what does that look like? It's an integrated software stack that allows you to run machine learning models at the edge and manage that life cycle of the machine learning models. So we didn't stop here at the software side of things. IoT Edge lets you enhance your operational reliability. So for those of you who have remote assets who can't afford to have network connectivity create a problem for you, this enables you to run close to the device. It also allows you to deploy these models faster in real time and do inference at the edge. You can also secure your devices and your data. So you can do some processing at the edge that enables you perhaps to restrict confidential information to stay at the edge. Of course, we have to do this in a cost-effective way and at scale. So that hardware that I mentioned that runs in our data centers now is also available at the edge. So we've developed an edge TPU. Of course, the form factor is a little bit smaller, and we've optimized for performance per watt and performance per dollar, so that you can take the benefit of this hardware AI and now put it down at the edge. This is really transformational. And if you can see, the chip that we've developed actually is quite small. You can fit 4 of these on the size of a US penny, which is quite small. But not only that, we talked about this life cycle of machine learning models. And we need to make sure that we simplify this, because when you have 1 million edge devices, managing those models for 1 million becomes quite challenging. So we've also enabled Cloud IoT Edge to help you manage and deploy those machine learning models. So you can use the cloud to train a model, deploy to the edge, and enable you to do inference at the edge. That life cycle, when you improve your model in the cloud, you can deploy to the edge and have an entire full life cycle of that machine learning model as a managed service. So you don't need to do this by yourself anymore. I want to walk you through an example of this in action. So we have a customer, LG CNS, and they make these LCD panels. And so one of the processes that they had was detecting defects on the panels. So you can see here that the current computer vision system detected about 60% of the anomalies or the defects in the LCD panel, which meant that they had to have additional people inspect to catch that additional 40%. Of course, this really slowed down their process. With one engineer using our cloud AI, they were able to build a model that took that accuracy from 60% to over 99%. So quite significant. However, that model couldn't run fast enough. So they can't upload these images fast enough. As you can see, they have 200 images in less than a second. So this is the perfect use case to deploy a machine learning model at the edge and to use an edge TPU to be able to process and do inference at the edge. Now, we talk about business value. We talked about intelligence and why it's so important. In this use case, they estimate they can save 1 million per line, and they have 20 lines in a factory. That's 20 million per year in shifting from what their existing solution was, leveraging machine learning. So why is IoT Edge so exciting for us? Because we believe it's going to unleash a number of applications across a number of different industries. So in manufacturing or in industrial as a whole, we've already seen a number of use cases. We talked about a few here. There's many, many more use cases where that near real-time or real-time inference is going to be critical for the applications that we want to run. We also have many use cases in retail where you might want to personalize for a shopper when they're in, based upon their location, based upon their recommendations and their preferences. We also have a number of use cases in transportation where you might want to get real-time information and make real-time decisions close to the edge. You can imagine things like collision avoidance or traffic routing. These are the types of use cases that we believe can be enabled by using edge, Cloud IoT Edge and Edge TPUs. So here's an example of an Edge TPU in action. This is an example of putting an Edge TPU, for example, in a traffic camera. So now you can imagine as part of your smart cities, you're going to have real-time traffic information. You're going to be able to make intelligent decisions. You're going to be able to feed that into other applications within the smart city infrastructure. So really, really quite powerful. To jumpstart the development with the Edge TPU, we've created a system on a module so that you can see this is an example of that, so that you don't have to wait for new hardware. This system on a module has a quad-core CPU, Wi-Fi, as well as a secure element and the TPU. So you can get started, and it also gives you the flexibility to fit into the custom design envelopes that you might need for your applications. Of course, we mentioned ecosystems. This is not possible without an ecosystem of hardware partners, as well as computing and analytics partners. So these are just a few of our early partners, and we'd love to have more. Now, we talked about intelligence everywhere. And part of that intelligence in IoT is also about location intelligence. Because we think about the number of use cases with connected devices, we think about how important location is in all of that. And so as we connect things, we want to also understand how location matters. Of course, we talked about Google's history in connected things, in big data, and machine learning. We also have a very storied history, as many of you know, in location. So taking the best of maps, routes, and places, you're able to visualize your assets in real time. You're able to create efficient routes for perhaps the most complex itineraries, and all over the world. So technology that we developed, such as geolocation, geocoding, this includes both indoor and outdoor, of course, distance matrix, directions, even real-time road conditions. So when you have assets that are moving, this is really, really important and can help you make significant improvements in your application. I wanted to run you through a couple of examples of this. So Vagabond is a company that provides technology to the food and beverage industry. So they connect operators with their vending machines. Now you can imagine these vending machines can be located almost anywhere. It can be in the back dock of a dark alley. It can be on the third floor of a dormitory room. So it was really important for them that they were able to use intelligent location. And now they take information from their vending machine, things like stock level and cash that might be existing in the vending machine, and they overlay that on the location. So this allows them to give their drivers more efficient routes for how they can do restocking. It also enables them to reduce their labor costs. So they've found that on average, they've reduced about 15% of their cost in labor in terms of how they operate. It also allowed them to reduce theft by about 15%. So significant value to their company and to their customers. Another example is a company called Fleetminder, which is owned and operated in Australia, but they service about 12 different countries. They provide asset tracking for vehicles, as well as combining that with some of the information that they're collecting off of these vehicles. So they're able to update their driving routes in real time. They're also able to recommend to their drivers when maintenance is required a service location that might be nearby. So in this particular case, they've also seen significant double-digit improvement in a couple of things. One, they've reduced driver overtime by about 25%. And for anyone who might be associated or who has been involved in the trucking or logistics industry, this is a huge problem for drivers, is turnover because of overtime. So they've been able to significantly reduce that. They've also been able to see significant improvement in the efficiency of their drivers. And this is really important as well. So driving double-digit improvements across the board. Last but not least, they also have been able to reduce the deliveries that were incorrect. So significant improvements. Now I want to go to the second pillar, which is about serverless and scalability. So you might ask, why is serverless so important? We've seen that a number of companies have really taken advantage of serverless technology in order to offload them from doing a lot of the infrastructure maintenance. Things that don't really differentiate your business and really focusing on what does differentiate your business. And so you've seen across the cloud, the Google Cloud Platform, serverless is a key pillar for us, taking advantage of Google's expertise in managing large-scale cloud infrastructure and allowing you to focus on what's important to you and your business, enabling you to scale from the first early POCs to millions of devices without having to worry about that. This is really quite critical for businesses that are going through this transformation journey. And so in Cloud IoT Core, which we announced last year, we've now added a number of features. And you heard Markus say one of the best benefits of working with Google was being able to influence roadmap. And so a number of these new features have come from our customers and what their needs have been. So things such as Cloud IoT provisioning, going from being able to do it at scale really efficiently with zero provisioning. Being able to use high-speed cloud-to-device messaging, so on the order of 100 messages per device at high speed. Being able to manage your devices in groups. This is important because, of course, managing millions becomes very, very challenging. We already talked about Cloud IoT Edge and how that's allowing us to bring intelligence to the edge. This is integrated in with Cloud IoT Core. Being able to leverage gateways, also a very important feature for Cloud IoT Core. And last but not least, of course, a number of logging, extensive logging, so that it helps you with maintainability of your solution. Security, the third pillar, and probably one of the most important pillars for IoT. IoT security is quite complex. At Google, we take a very serious approach to security, and we call it defense in depth, which means that you have to look at everything from hardware all the way through to your application. This isn't just true for IoT, this is true for all of our cloud infrastructure. So we have a secure chip that sits on our hardware in our data centers to verify boot. This is critical for us that we, at every step, think about what attack might happen and that how we can detect or prevent those attacks. The same is true for IoT. You have security vulnerability from device to edge, platform, and applications. And you need to be thinking about security at all these layers, how you're going to detect an intrusion, how you're going to handle that. These are very, very complex things, and Google has invested quite significantly in security. But I want to mention that for us, we take a very open and standard approach to security when we're talking about IoT devices. So we've worked with JAW tokens to enable mutual authentication, but for constrained devices. So this is a very light footprint so that you can do this on a very constrained device. It's easily upgradable. There's no dependency on TLS, and so you're able to do this for non-IP devices as well. We also recently announced this 8-bit microcomputer chip that we've been working with Microchip on. This is combined, it's a crypto chip, the ECC608, providing hardware root of trust, encryption and authentication to Cloud IoT Core. This is really, really game-changing in the industry and something that we think is really critical for the future of IoT and for the future of security of devices. Last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about the ecosystem of partners. I don't think that IoT will be successful unless we enable ecosystems, because the last thing that a customer wants is 5 islands of IoT data and IoT solutions. So we need to form ecosystems, and we need to make sure that we're delivering on our promise of business value when we deliver IoT solutions. So it's really critical that we focus on hardware, software, application, SI, ISVs. We also, at the end of May, announced that we joined the LoRa Alliance. So we're really proud to be part of that alliance and part of the ecosystem. This is a list of just some of our IoT partners, and we'd love to have more, but I encourage you that if you're interested, please come and stop by our booth and talk with some of our partners. They're all showcasing some of the things and the work that they've done with Google Cloud. Now, I want to run an example. We've talked about 4 pillars of critical importance. We've talked about intelligence everywhere. We've talked about serverless. We've talked about security. And last but not least, we talked about partners. You know, IoT is really about driving change. And I want to show you an example of this in action.
West Oakland is surrounded by 3 major freeways, and it is downwind of the Port of Oakland, which is the 5th largest port in the country. The community is a real blend of land uses. There's warehouses next to homes, and it's only been recently, in the past half century, that we've realized that this is a bad layout for public health.
We have had clusters of cancers related to respiratory problems.
What makes airborne pollutants so dangerous is that they are not always visible to the human eye. EDF and Google brought together other partners to collect, measure, and analyze air pollution data in Oakland.
So Google brought on Aclima, who equipped our Street View cars with their Aclima Environmental Intelligence Platform, which captures scientific-grade air quality measurements.
What we've done is miniaturized basically an air quality laboratory into the car, so it's able to provide high-quality measurement at fast time resolution.
EDF partnered with academic scientists to analyze the data that we receive from the Google Street View cars. The measurements and analysis have shown elevated levels of black carbon and nitrogen oxides in Oakland. These types of air pollutants typically come from the burning of fossil fuels, cars, trucks, and other industrial sources.
We're really beginning to see in much higher detail what the air we breathe on the ground in the neighborhood looks like.
We hope this new data can empower local communities and community groups to advocate for cleaner air.
So this shows you how we can use IoT data with an ecosystem of partners to really bring about change. It doesn't stop here, actually. This story is really great. Kaiser joined into the ecosystem and took electronic medical records and did a block-by-block analysis of health issues related to the air quality. This is the most detailed study of its kind and has shown now a trend around heart disease with the elderly people who live in this community. So really, really powerful way to make a change. And now we've announced in September that we're actually going to be deploying 50 more of these vehicles around globally to be able to do this in other communities as well. So this is IoT in action. This is IoT really driving change. So I really appreciate the time that you spent today. If you want to learn more, I encourage you to stop by our booth. But before we do that, before we leave, I'd like to ask Markus to join me back up on stage. I didn't see him at first. Because I think we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. So anybody have any questions? While we're waiting, anything you want to share about some of the challenges maybe that you faced with Google Cloud? We always like feedback, so.
You know, I think there's an extent to which technicians come with a technology before they hit the reality of real-life problems, and it's interesting to see what it takes to get into discussion about, you need to change that, or you have a problem here and we need to fix that, or we can't scale it, for example. That's quite a bit. You talked about hardware. I think that was one of the challenges at the beginning. Find the right hardware partner that, we can build an end-to-end ecosystem on that. And with the announcements recently, and the things that we saw also here in the fair, there's a lot of developments going on to broaden the ecosystem of hardware providers that are closely integrated into the cloud solutions. And as you said, our biggest challenge is definitely enabling the edge, because this is super early developments. There's a lot of innovation going on, and There are multiple choices you can take. You know, what is the right hardware? What size? What price tag you go for? What can you achieve? What could you also, let's say, reclaim from a customer? You need to be clear about what is your OS on the edge. How does that fit? Is that a long-term bet? Because, you know, if you build something and you put it in a building, it needs to stay there for 5 to 10 years. You know, we have thousands and millions of customers, so we can't just drive around and change everything every 2 years. So it's still a balancing act between what are you, what decision you're taking for hardware and software, and the long-term commitment associated to that, and how stable is that, and you know, how long will that be available in the market. So I think partners like Google, they're rather in the situation to extend availability of technology for the timelines that we need. Mm-hmm. There's also learning, you know, when we talk with Google about lifetime of support and technology, they thought about, you know, things like in the mobile industry, you know, 1, 2, 3 years. And we told them, you know, we have a smart meter and he runs for 15 to 20 years in the basement. So we can't be there every 2 years to build a new technology and bring it to every household. It's not something that is self-installing. And that also made aware to the Google folks that if you come from residential customer going into B2B businesses and engineering areas, that it's a different ball game, and you need to expand and learn also from customers what it really takes and what which parameters are and paradigms are out there you need to embrace, your solutions need to embrace, especially if you go to the edge. I think the cloud is fundamentally driven by all of these cloud providers like Google, and it was something they can do more or less on their own. It was industrialization of data centers. Going to the edge, you're much more closer to the core business. Mm-hmm. And that becomes a little bit more difficult because you need to understand the industry. A cloud solution is relatively independent of an industry. As soon as you want to deploy something, if it's on the rig side, if it's in a retail store, or it's on a lorry, it's all different. And that makes it a little bit more complicated also to reach scale in your solution.
Yeah, one of the things, as we talked about intelligence everywhere today, you know, we start with, let's just get data, let's collect data, and then you talked about visualizing data, and that's usually the second step. What are your thoughts on now this next wave of machine learning, of AI? You know, how is that going to transform some of your business?
I think, first of all, IoT is important for us to get the data first, because all the data that we currently have is limited to the interaction that we have as a utility, which is relatively low to end customers. So to connect to our customers on premise with IoT solutions is important to retrieve more information that we can use to either optimize services and service experience for customers, but also developing new software and developing new solutions and being able to deal with the data and get more insights out of that. Now we see that the number of data is overwhelming. If you think about a smart meter, it creates, if you want to, for example, do disaggregation, you want to understand which device is actually on and off in a home at any point in time, in real time. You need to create 8,000 samples per second, measurement samples, which you then put into machine learning software that identifies, okay, now I've got my stove on, I got my washing machine on, got my lights on, or my TV's on, or you know, I'm leaving the home and I want to ensure that everything is just shut down that should be shut down. That means you have hundreds of gigabytes of data that gets created in one home. The public internet is not fast enough, it's not broad enough, and you can't just say, you know, please, dear customer, give us a broadband internet access and we take the whole bandwidth. So AI at the edge will fundamentally help us to get the IoT idea delivered. Mm-hmm. I think without AI on the edge, all the things that we saw in many of the presentations and discussions will simply not work. There's too much happening, and edge is the next paradigm that moves us from central cloud-based computing to a very distributed thing. It was like, you know, years ago when we had mainframes and we went to client server, Now we got the cloud as, let's say, the equivalent to the hosting system, now having compute power again at the edge because of this enormous number of data that we need to deal with. And it's all in combination, so you can't just focus on that or that. So you need the cloud to have machine learning and huge number crunching machines that can get reasonable insights. And on the other hand, you need the edge to really execute these models in real time. And I think that's the next thing, to really deliver solutions that can combine both.
Now I know, I'm constantly looking to see if we have any other questions. I'll keep asking questions. As we've been talking, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, and probably interesting to many in this room as you're going through IoT, is that you're actually also enabling sort of a business model transformation in how you deliver your services. You had talked to me a little bit about how you're delivering almost like heating as a service. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
We're delivering in many countries, especially in Sweden, for example, we do district heating. So we take heat, waste heat that happens in industrial production, and we put it into our pipelines, and we bring it to end customers for heating their homes or heating their water. To make this more efficient, we are about to also roll out IoT solutions to that, to improve the operational efficiency, but also the comfort level for end customers. We also install heating systems. So you can order a complete heat pump and get it installed by E.ON. And therefore, we connect the way you use your heat system. We can also do predictive maintenance on that. And we can also help other industry to join that kind of grid. So what we do is we expose more and more our capabilities to outside markets and help also others maybe to join our infrastructure to get along with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what IoT is really about. All these different aspects that we can now enable and do it cost effectively where we may not have been able to in the past.
Yeah.
Great. I think we're up on time. I really appreciate everyone joining. Please give a round of applause to my colleague here, Markus, again. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Have a good rest of the conference.